Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Grow channel. I'm your host Miraj Husen and today I have someone truly special joining me. He has over 27 years of experience in counseling and had an impact on me personally and thousands of people like me. He is doing counseling even before my birth. So I'm very excited and very honored to welcome the one and only
Ah,
Brian Krylowicz.
thank you.
Welcome, Brian. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing great today. Thank you.
Um, Brian, tell a little more about yourself.
I'll do the resume thing. I'm Brian Krylowicz. I am currently the director of counseling here at Springfield College. Soon to be leaving, unfortunately, but I'm going off to Loyola University in Chicago. College mental health is my life. I've been doing this as you kind of showed me 27 years, but it's most of my life I've done this. I'm a licensed psychologist and a person that truly enjoys helping people grow, which I love the title of your podcast. And also, I'm a person that truly loves the college experience. So that's kind of combines my two things.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving your a small snap of your experience, your journey. Directly I want to hit the question. Let me start with something that I found very interesting in Springfield College. When I was doing research about you, uh, in Springfield College, the things that really stick to me, and I think this is one of the best notes to start the podcast. Brian grew up Brian grew up with single mom and he vividly remembers sitting around the dining room table with her and his aunt talking about life. There was a lot of laughter and many tears. Can you please take us back to those conversations about life and what were they like?
Sure. So my mom left my father. She separated from him when I was 9 years old. And I always think of strong people. I mean, I think of yourself in a really weird way of like this. Like she is a woman that hadn't worked in a couple in years and in decades that she hadn't worked. Left her husband, had no income, moved across the country, and tried to figure out a way to raise a 9-year-old boy. And the way she did this is she moved closer to her sisters. And so, two doors down from me was my Aunt Ramona, and about 2 blocks away was my Aunt Eleanor. All three of those women had been separated or divorced from their husbands. And so, a lot of my childhood, I remember we lived in a small apartment. And so they were beyond sisters, they were very good friends. And so they would see each other all the time. And so our families were intermingled. When I say I have a mom, I really had three moms. And so they would get together and they were the most honest people that I know. So if something went wrong in their lives or something horrible happened, they just spilled it. And so my childhood was like, I always say, it was three women, usually drinking coffee, usually smoking cigarettes, talking about how life sucks, and then finding a way to either be supported by it or finding a way to have some humor with it and finding a way through it. And all three of them were always there to support each other. And so it was kind of I always tell people it was like group therapy for me. And so just being there and listening to them all the time and talking about it and being funny. And my mom used to have a saying, which is either we laugh about it or we cry about it. And so we laughed a lot. But there were definitely times that we cried, and it was sad because could we afford the rent? Were we going to be evicted? A lot of tough, real questions that existed, and so just seeing them just find a way all the time to get through it.
Okay, sounds good. You said you grew up with a single mom, three mom.
Yeah.
Okay, but let me touch here because when I was going through your social media, I think I spent like my more than 1 hour and I saw a lot of picture about your daughter,
Yes.
like from almost every journey you have captured over there. So I want to compare your
Yeah.
experience with your daughter. How does it feel to grow up with a single mom? Because you grew up as a single mom, but now your daughter is growing up with the both parents, like father and mother. So what are the differences you have seen?
Well, first off, I was really terrified of having a kid. I mean, my dad, in many regards, I never really knew my dad, but other people did. And so they always regarded him as a very good human being, but my dad was an alcoholic. And so he was not someone that my childhood does not have any really good memories of my dad. And so I was really terrified of being a dad. And so I really kind of avoided wanting to, because I was fearful I would be my dad. And so part of my journey of going through all this was I really wanted to do this right. I wanted to be much more like my mom and be a part of my child's life and being very active and being very connected. And so my mom influenced me in good ways, but my dad like scared me of like I didn't want to mess this up. And so as you see on my social media, a lot of it is just that those are the moments that while I'm raising her, it's also my own experience of going through it.
Cool, thank you. Brian, there was another thing that really stick out to me is that Brian strived to have meaningful and honest relationship. Uh, honest relationship. What do you mean by meaningful relationship?
When I say this, and I'll say this towards myself, I say this to other people. I want people to always know, oh, that's Brian. They know me. Like, and so it's a deep, like being raised as a kid with my aunts and everything. I knew them. There was no secret side to them. It was very genuine. It was very meaningful. When you're with somebody, I want to make sure that someone felt special and they were attended to, and I wanted people to know me that way. So meaningful is where it's not disposable. It's not like a transactional. It becomes a different level where, you know, I have moments of my life where I remember certain people and I think of them all the time. Those are the meaningful that alter and change me. I hope that I would do the same for other people. That I do a joke in therapy, which is always like, when people leave me, I say, just remember when you're in a tough spot, what would I say to you? And if you can remember that, then I'll always be with you, and then it's meaningful.
Oh wow, thank you. I have been to you a number of times, and yeah, I remember because you give a lot of analogy, and whenever, like right now, even though right in this spot, if you ask, I can tell about the example you give me about the hair in the food, when you are driving. Couple of example, yeah, that really stick to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my God. Uh, Brian, I found a very interesting thing. Brian typically view depression and anxiety as a normal reaction of abnormal situation. What is that?
So I use this example with people that if you go to your kitchen and you touch a hot plate, you get pain in your hand
Yes.
and it tells you let go, something is wrong, you need to do that. I tell people anxiety and depression are your friends. They're trying to tell you you're doing something wrong, something is happening in your life. You need to listen to that pain. So anxiety and depression are the pain sensors you would typically have when you're touching something hot. This is you're mentally hot. And so those are things where that when they're there, I use kind of a weird one. Like depression and anxiety are like kind of a dog. They bark. Something's going on. You just don't know what it is. And so if you listen to them, they become very helpful. If you don't, then they grow into something that becomes more pathological or more, diagnosable or more of a disorder type of quality. But if you listen to them, it's just like hot. It's just like I'm hungry. That's your mind telling you something about your life isn't right.
Brian, what is the difference between anxiety and depression?
Okay, I'm going to sound real. So who knows? All listens to your podcast. I tell people they're the same thing. They're just different. So I also some. So depression oftentimes is, I think, more of an implosion inwards. Anxiety is a fear of the outward. And so, I always tell people there really isn't much difference. It's just different symptoms. So if someone's depressed, you will oftentimes see someone who is lacking in energy, someone um, that is more doesn't have the energy to get things done, is more frozen. And using the true, if you take the word depressed, if you're depressed, you're pushed down. And so that's what depression is. Anxiety is that nervousness and that hypervigilance of everything. But they're oftentimes I consider them from the root, same thing, but just different symptoms, what people use.
Cool. Uh, in the site, I read that you are like very passionate about the anxiety and depression. What make you to go very depth about anxiety and expression, anxiety and depression?
I think because they're so normal. Some people get in this profession like the really obscure, smaller, unusual things. Anxiety and depression it's what people mostly struggle with. And so to me, if you deal with what most people struggle with and how to help them, you're going to help more people. And so and I think especially at the college area, where it is a very, I consider a natural reaction sometimes of, you're here during the summer and some of your friends may not be here and like you get a little more lonely or you're happy they're not here, who knows? But you get to a certain place where you're going through this. So anxiety and depression to me is just, it's the bread and butter of kind of mental health.
Okay, cool. Just now you give the example. Okay, it's summer and my friend are not here, so I feel lonely. Yeah, I admit, I feel like that. So based on your experience, what are the some of the things that you have seen in a student? What is the some common anxiety, depression, or whatever things you have seen in a student? And also, like, what is the time where there is a very huge number of people in the counseling center?
So, so typical things like I think college in itself. One of the questions I looked at your question you're going to ask me, and one of the questions was how has counseling centers changed over my career, or the mental health stuff. One thing that's really different is it used to be the most of the students that came in were depressed, and now most students who come in now are anxious. And so it's interesting to me how that is switched over. So when I describe what I typically see is, I think, people tend to like, there's a real reward of worrying about the future. And that's good until it becomes not good, which becomes anxiety. And you're trying to control things you can't control. Where occasionally we'll still see people depressed for like, there's no point in doing anything. I'm stuck. I'm in a hole. I can't get out of it. So a lot of the times, especially at the college level, where I work mainly with 18 to 24-year-olds typically, is they haven't sometimes experienced these certain problems, and if they learn how they're solvable and they don't feel permanent, the better they are. So when we get really busy in the counselor, just times like when the pressure for academics increases, when social issues are going on, when you're worried about jobs or money, all those things add up to where when you feel it's uncontrollable and you can't do much about it, that's where the surge comes in for the counseling center.
Okay, cool. I will take one more thing from the college website. Anxiety and depression are created by the separation of who we are, like the real self versus the ideal self. What is this?
So I'm stealing from a theorist of psychology.
Okay.
So it's Carl Rogers. And what the idea of your ideal self and your real self are pretty close together. And usually they're never identical. How you think you are and like how you want to be is usually a little separation. The more there's this separation, his theory is that's where anxiety and depression and psychological distress come from. And so the idea that like I want to be this person, I want to give an image off who it is, but I'm not that person, or I don't see myself. The wider that is, when people sometimes they say they think they're a fraud, or they think they're living a lie, even though they just sometimes don't see what they really are. And so the closer I can get people to being who you are and who you want to be, usually that's a spot where then people are going, I'm doing much better and I don't need to come for therapy, or I feel I'm in a better place.
Wait, I think I'm a little bit confused here. You say that when there is like big difference between who you are and who you want to be, there will be like more depression. So is it not okay for me to dream like crazy big?
No, so crazy big is great, but you need to know like your ideal self right now, not your ideal self in 30 years from now, or in your case, 5 years from now, because
Yeah.
I know you're going to jump up quick. But in terms of like, I think the ideal self is really in that spot where like who you think you are right now, and then how you really perceive yourself. And so I think you're very aware that you're a college student, that you're in a spot where you're still trying to put it all together, even though you're doing 1,000 things, which I love. But it's the idea that you're trying to do this and you just know who you are versus kind of what something where people get caught up in is like I want to be this really like I want to be like I want to be loved by all my friends. I'm the most popular person, and their real self is I don't really have any friends and no one's coming by. When that huge separation is there, and that's where it hurts a lot. Or I want to be a great student, but I don't go to classes and I don't turn anything in. That's where that depression, anxiety. It isn't the future. Dreaming big is great, but it's also being realistic of like one of the things I always say, you always want to have goals that you fail at, because it means it's pushing you to your utter limit, not just like hey, I woke up today. Well, that's not a big goal. I'm gonna do a podcast today. That's a bigger goal.
Thank you. Uh, I was I was going through your page and I found that you started the journey of counseling in 19, I think 97, even before my birth. How was the counseling how was the counseling therapy in that, like how people were perceiving counseling in that time? Because the place where I come from Nepal, and even in 2000, there is no the word
Right, right.
counseling do not exist. The first time I knew about counseling therapy in Springfield College. So in 1997, how was the scenario and how did you choose the counseling career?
So I'm going to even go further back before, even further before your birth.
Okay.
So I started my graduate program at Texas Tech in 1991. And so in the second year of your program, you start doing counseling. And then the third year, you go work at the College Counseling Center in my program, how that was set up. So in 1993, I began this. And so when I first started doing this, I really wanted to be a sports psychologist. I wanted to work with athletes. So one of the good places at that point in time, because this is many many years ago, um, this is a spot where that's where you got a connection to college athletics and help people out. And so when I worked in the counseling center there, I also worked with athletics a little bit. But that's where I began like this kind of a cool journey where at that point in time, very few people came to counseling. I think problems still existed, but you like you described for Nepal a little bit, where there was more of a stigma of coming over or doing these types of things. And so it was a different time. It was a different place where people kind of came along. Um, but it was good that way. And so when I moved further along in my career, like 1997, where I worked at Casper College in Wyoming, one of the things I used to advertise all the time, I used to go around trying to get people to come to counseling. If you have these issues and identifying and making it aware, probably around, about middle of, probably bizarrely around when Facebook was invented, which was back, I believe, in like 2004. So then I think people became more aware and they were more like aware of what was going on and communicating with each other, or became more aware that their friends were happy, but they weren't. And so there's a little bit more comparison that was going on. That's when the counseling centers seemed to really, where I noticed in counseling centers, I always had a wait list. It went from a place where like, boy, we should get more people to come in to what are we going to do with everybody? And so then that's where that began. So about 20 years ago, and that in my experience, because I did national data for counseling centers for years, that's about the time when the counseling centers seem to be just really just blowing up in terms of growth, in terms of a lot of people using the centers. And so I always attribute it bizarrely to social media and the iPhone. Anxiety bizarrely started, the increase of anxiety increased with the phone. It's very odd. And it could be other reasons, it could be correlational. But when the iPhone came out, that's when anxiety rates started going up.
So what do you think how iPhone has increased the anxiety?
I think it's easy. Like you and I are sitting here really talking with each other, which is lovely. But when you have a phone, it's I could do this and not, and I can be with people but not be with people. So the phone became much more interesting. I'm so old. My first text messages were like the press the same button to get one letter to get to C, and you had to go through all these weird steps. Texting stunk. And then when the BlackBerry and then the iPhone made it so easy, where I think we started living lives away from where we were at. I mean, you're in a perfect situation. I can't remember, I don't know how many miles it is in Nepal from here, but it's a lot. And like, you could be caught up in everything going on back home, or you could be here. Not that you're not aware of it home. That's where technology is great. But I think people started getting into the amount of people I saw sitting, we're having lunch together, and they're sitting there on their phones talking to somebody else, wishing they were with somebody when someone's sitting right across the table from them. That seemed to be where the anxiety increased, or they became more aware of. Have you ever heard the term FOMO, the fear of missing out? Their phone's like, oh, my friends are having more fun than me, versus like, I'm having fun with you. And so, back in my day, like if I went away from my house, no one knew how to reach me. It was like I just came back and like, oh, you're trying to reach me. Sorry, I was out. I was doing something. And now we're always aware what everyone else is doing.
Cool.
Or
Uh,
not cool, I think in that case.
no, I agree because even though like in the social media, Yeah, I agree. When I'm sitting with my friend and if I'm scrolling, I'm not with that
You're
person.
not with them.
I'm there and I'm comparing with that instead of enjoying that moment.
Yes,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
that's and I think this is where I think I wish counseling would no one would want to come to counseling because they're doing so well. And I think the more we get to connect with real people and really engage, and you asked me a question earlier about meaningful relationships, have more of them. Because then I love looking at my phone here and there, but like I want to be with who I'm with.
Okay. In the conversation, you talk about the stigma. So what do you think? Like there is a still, I will say there is a still a kind of stigma. Like people like me,
Sure.
that the people who are a kind of going through a hard time, the people who are having the mental issue, they go to the counseling center.
Right. I'm better
Actually,
than that.
actually, who a counseling center is for whom? Who like who need to go to the counseling center?
I think you are you one of the tutors here on our campus? Do you tutor anybody for any classes?
Yes.
Why do people go to tutoring? You know, and you think about it, like you know, who should go to tutoring is good students too. You know, because like, hey, I think I got this, but I really, really want to get this. And so I look at counseling in a way of like, if you need kind of like, I'm stuck on a problem. I mean, when you tutor, there's nothing worse when someone gets stuck and like 4 weeks later, then they come forth and they've been confused for 4 weeks and everything in the class doesn't make any sense to them anymore. And so what I'm trying to do is like when you're kind of like, huh, how many people I know it's one of my big struggles is people in class. They just raise your hand in class and go, I don't understand this. Could you explain that to me again? But how many people sit in class going, no, and they all nod their head like I know what's going on. That's for material in a class, but I think in life, like this is confusing to me. What am I going to do? I'm all for people trying to figure their own situation out. Like any like a tutor, like have you worked on this? Have you tried to do a couple things? Have you tried to problem solve? But once you get to a place where you're stuck, get help. And I always tell people the more you come in, and you know this as a tutor, if someone comes in and goes, oh, now I get it, I can do the rest by myself. When people get so far behind, then it takes a lot more effort to get them caught up. So the idea, I love when people come in. Sometimes one of my favorite things is someone comes in for 20 minutes and they go, you answered my question. Now I know what to do. I'm done. And that tells me they came in when they were just kind of beginning to get stuck or they're beginning to a new situation. And like, how do I help me guide me through this and let me sound this off? So for me, the stigma is there, but if people approach it, but people's like stigma, I don't want to go to tutoring. I don't know. I don't want to show them I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm a tough person. Like I can fix that. And like at some point, I can't fix that. I got to bring someone in or go on YouTube and watch how to fix this or whatever it would be. And so all I'm there to do is to kind of be a life tutor,
Okay, perfect. So you say when someone is stuck, they can come to the, they come for the tutoring to me. But
basically.
that is the physical because if you give the 2 plus 3, it's going to 5. They don't know, so they don't know the answer is not matching, then they come. But in life, it is not like so easy. It's very hard because I don't know whether I'm stuck in this situation or not because in every mind, everyone is smart and they thought that they are doing the perfect what they can do. In addition, there is also like social media. For example, if I'm going through a breakup
Yep.
and if I watch like breakup is good, there is million of content that will explain breakup is good. If I say breakup is bad, there is million of content that will come and say breakup is bad. So I get validation from the social media. So two question: how will I know in the real life I'm stuck?
Right.
Second, how do you see the social media validation on the personal thought?
These are great questions. So we'll go to the first one of how do you know you're stuck? I
Yeah.
think I think when I know I'm because I work at a college, so I talk about grades all the time. When you realize you're getting a C or below in life, you're stuck.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think in life, when you realize like I keep getting in the same spot, I keep going to bed with the same thought, I keep getting, or I'm getting anxious, I'm getting depressed, I'm feeling, if I'm just physical things, I don't have the energy to do something, I'm really more angry. When you feel like I can't get out of this, using a common American term, I can't get out of this funk. I'm just stuck here. Then that's where like you have to listen to yourself of like, okay, it's more than like it's like if I get a cold, I don't go to a doctor right away. I wait a couple days. If it's getting worse, is it getting better? If it's getting better, then I know my body's healing itself. I'm in a better place. Don't worry about it. But if it's like, oh, this keeps getting worse or it doesn't go away, that's when I would go. Almost, if you look at almost every, like if you look at how we diagnose in psychology, usually the element is for 2 weeks or more. Like, so it's a spot where like something happened and I really haven't broken away from this. And let's be honest, there's certain things in life, I know this wouldn't happen to you, but like you fail a class or you get rejected from a program. It's, you should be sad. That's normal. So you have to go on the idea like sometimes bad things happen, and if something happens in your family and you feel really bad for that, it's not unusual that you would stay and be in a different place. But sometimes even then it's like helping people realize, okay, that's normal that you'd be stuck. The second part, I remember trying to remember the exact question. It was more of social media and how this plays out.
Social media validation.
And so I think this is a great thing. And I'm curious with your AI kind of, I know this is your area. I think what the problem with social media is people, I wish people would look for the opposite answer they want. So I do this really silly thing in counseling. And so we'll use a weird example of like, Brian, should I do this podcast with you or not? And I say, when they're like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure. And I'll get a coin out and I'll flip it. I'll go, okay, what do you want it to be? Heads or tails? And it's a spot where like, I go like this, and I go, what do you hope it's going to be? You go heads, then it's heads. And so a lot of times what people do is they go towards the things they want. Agree with me, agree with me. I'm a firm believer of look at the other side. I'm an analytical person. I like to know the other side of things. So like in like that situation, is this good or bad? Yes, it could be both. And I think part is I love when people research it and look it up a little bit more. And so I think if you're just looking at one side on social media and everybody's agreeing with you, I don't like friends that always agree with me. I use this little thing about you. I think later on you're going to ask me a question about this, I think, but it's the idea of like, I have a little saying I live with myself all the time, which is I get up every day to be wrong. I like going like, huh, that was not how I thought it was. That's interesting. I learned something today that changed how I was thinking about it. So I think when people go to social media, if you're looking for just to be proven right, that's a bad way to do it. If you're I'm looking for multiple answers and like trying to figure it out, that's better.
You said that every day I wanted to see how I'm wrong, or oh, I can see like that. How do you practice that? How do you get that?
I think I realize I'm never a finished product.
Okay.
There's always something new to learn. There's always something, and to me, where my mental health is good is I'm always looking to learn. Every day is like, what is new? How can I do this? I've been here for 13 years, and every day I'm always like, oh, that's different. Okay, I didn't think about that. Let me try to work. Let me solve this problem. Oh, the way I did that before doesn't work for this. And so there's a term in psychology called a growth mindset. And if you're always the idea of I'm trying to grow, like your podcast is called Let's Grow. And so if you're looking to grow, it's not like I'm looking to be right. I'm looking to grow. And grow sometimes is like, I don't like I don't like that idea that's different than mine, but I think it's better. And so there's a term in psychology by Piaget, which is assimilation and accommodation, which is if there's the way your mindset works. If you learn something, you assimilate, which is here I agree with it. Oh, this is one more piece of information. But then there's a point where you do accommodation, where you go, that's a whole different way of have to think about things. Now I have to completely think about it differently. So you have to like let go of what you did before. So the hard part of life is letting go of what you thought was right to do something different, and that's hard.